Having an upset stomach and suddenly having that horrible feeling where you need to dash to the loo is quite mortifying, especially if it happens while you're out. Thankfully, for most of us, that only happens on the odd occasion. But for Margaret Wynne, it happened for 15 years on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that meant, you know, her whole personal life, being out socially, was ruined. Everything was a nightmare. Trying to walk for more than a few minutes was impossible. Because she never really got warning, like in terms that she was getting cramps or anything like that. But this year, after almost giving up hope of ever finding a cure for what is called fecal incontinence, Margaret was given life-changing surgery. And she's here this morning together with the man who carried out that surgery. And it is fascinating to hear what he did. We'll hear that shortly. And he is Dr. Sharma. Margaret, you weren't born with this condition. Yeah, you know, a lot of people think, oh, well, that's the way you were created or whatever it is. When did it start?
I would say between 15 and 20 years ago, but it creeps on you so slowly that you don't notice it. Like you've just said, you feel as though you pass wind and something will happen. And then it gradually got worse, and you go to see specialists and you give them sigmoidoscopies and colonoscopies, and answers can't be given to you why this is happening to you. And I even went through a period of thinking, well, am I a celiac?
Yeah.
You know, and changed my diet completely. And that didn't work at all.
And they would check for things like Crohn's disease.
Disease, irritable bowel syndrome, everything. But that just wasn't happening.
I mean, was the problem getting
the
progressively
problem was
worse
getting worse. So much so that it was part of the reason that I gave up work, because I just couldn't stand the thought of going into work and say, there's only so many times you say I've got an upset tummy, I've got to go home.
Yeah, but what about, never mind giving up work, we're just going out in general?
Well, you know, there were many a time that my husband and I, we would go out for a meal and not get there because we'd have to come home. Or we'd go to the theatre and I'd have to come home.
And not you go home just to go to the loo because you've soiled yourself, is it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to change clothes.
I'd have to change clothes, I'd have to shower, I'd have to completely top to toe again.
When you hear that, Margaret, it's just the embarrassing and
well, you're always
undignified.
Aware that can people smell me?
Yes.
You know, and it's horrible, it's absolutely horrible. But now I'm not like that anymore. And I've always taken a pride in my appearance. I'm not as thin as I used to be.
Who is?
Well, you are. Not as thin as I used to be, but, you know, I've always taken pride in my appearance. But it didn't matter what I ate. It didn't matter where I'd go. You know, I live, there's a park right in front of my house, and I couldn't cross the park because I knew I wouldn't be able to come home again.
So you had no warning?
No warning whatsoever.
You don't feel it coming on?
No, no.
You must have gone home and cried.
Many and many a time. Then I got involved with something that was called the Healthy Bowel Clinic, which is run by the consultant Dr. Mr. Paul Scaife, and he has two fantastic women working with him. Well, one of them now has gone to Manchester to open her own clinic, and that is Sandra Blythen. And she was absolutely wonderful with me, because I can remember sitting in her office, and I was 58, and crying and saying, well, if I'm like this now, what am I going to be like when I'm 68 or 78?
So you had felt you had lost your complete dignity?
I'd lost everything.
And how did that manifest itself? When did you, I mean, because, you know, your husband, the man you love, your partner for life, he's there beside you, he will be with you through in sickness and in health. But why did you feel so sorry for him?
Because nobody deserves to sleep next door to a woman that might soil herself. Nobody deserves that.
And was it affecting your relationship?
It was, in a sense that it was affecting me. It wasn't affecting Stephen, because Stephen has always said that he loves me, and it didn't matter what happened, he would still love me. And we actually renewed our vows last October, so that was absolutely wonderful.
There you are.
This man, Stephen, I mean, he loved you so much that there was a point during all this time that he was helping you do something called anal irrigation, where they say you clear out the bowel to hopefully stop you having accidents.
I had anal irrigation because it was thought that it was developed, the anal irrigation, it's called peristine, for people with spinal injuries. Because obviously they don't have any sensation at all when they want to go to the loo. And that was to clear your bowel out completely. Effectively, it's supposed to last you for 24 hours because your system
Steve,
works on.
You said I can't.
I can't do this. No, because you've got to have a certain bit of mystery.
Right.
In a marriage.
And you didn't, I mean, anti-diarrhea tablets didn't work?
Didn't work at all.
Nappies, you didn't?
Wouldn't resort to that.
Wouldn't resort to that. Now, then comes along Dr. Sharma here. And Doctor, basically, how did you guys diagnose the problem? Because this is something actually that will affect other people and they may not be aware of it. And if you've had children, it may affect you in the future. So tell us about what the problem was.
I think what happened in Margaret's case, you know, she has been fortunately under care of Mr. Paul Scaife, a colorectal surgeon, who have been looking after her for quite some time. And then you went to continence service, Sandra, one of the nurses. So they kind of treated her, and then they realized that there was anything wrong structure-wise. So her pelvic floor muscles were right, and her bowel was functioning okay. It was just weak. And the nerves which control the function of the bowel, they were not functioning to the optimal level. So that was not a structure problem, but the way the nerves were supplying information to her brain and how the control was developing. That's where the problem was. I mean, we have to understand that the way the bowel opens, it's a very, very complex. The way it all comes about. Is
it muscle contraction?
It's a rectal muscle also works there. But I think the way patient feel the rectum also is controlled by the nerves and the pelvic floor muscles, and then there is a sphincter which is under your control. So it's very complex.
This is where technology comes in, and this is absolutely amazing. Ruth, you know this because your dad was fitted with a pacemaker.
Yeah, so this is a pacemaker of a sort, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of called a sacral plexus or sacral pacemaker, and essentially what it does is
just hold it up there, doctor. Sir. Yeah.
So essentially, what I have here, that bit is the battery.
Yeah.
And that powers the whole device.
And that's implanted in the buttock.
In the buttock. Okay. It's a very small device because I implant many other devices, and those are much bigger.
Can you feel this, Margaret? No. Can you feel this inside? No.
Oh, it's there. I know it's there, but
it's not uncomfortable.
No, it's not uncomfortable, and you learn to trust it, and you don't take any notice.
So when she says you learn to trust it, what does she mean by that?
So this wire then does what?
Essentially, what happens is that this wire is introduced, but I think before she had this implanted, you had a test phase by a device which is very inexpensive. It costs only about £200, and that's inserted as a day case procedure. And Margaret went home the same day.
So these electrical pulses will help you contract at the rectum, and you control it then from this.
I can use this machine here. If I press this bottom button here, and then you can hear a slight beep.
Yeah.
And that tells me that it's working. Yeah.
And so you can control
I can control it and higher it or lower it. And when the implant was first put in, it's on 1.9 at the moment. When I first had it inserted, it was on 2.3. And that was a bit heavy.
So how has this changed your life? We're running out of time, unfortunately.
Sorry.
But
it's changed my life completely because I wouldn't have been able to come to London.
No.
Sure.
I'll be sitting here.
Because
what are you saying? If you're on the train now and you need to go to the loo, you can decide when you go to the loo. Is that what you're saying?
No. Same as everybody else, most people go and evacuate their bowels once a day.
Yeah.
That's all I do now.
And in between, she's not.
But you're told when to do it.
No. It's the same as you. You know when you want to go to the loo.
She can feel it.
I can feel it when I want to go to the loo.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it's not like mashed potatoes anymore.
Oh, listen, Mark, I'm so sorry. We have run out of time, and it's an amazing device, and we're so pleased for you that this has given you your life back.
And we want to talk as well, also, which we want your views this morning on public loos. They're closing them everywhere.
Yes.
And you think, I mean, obviously it is a disgrace for people like yourself who need it, but we've got no more time to talk about that. But if you've got views, there's a woman doing a sit-in